right, guys, it's time for tonight's Tool Time Award. And tonight, we're giving it to a grumpy news host over at Fox News. And no, it's actually not Bill O'Reilly. Fox News Sunday's Chris Wallace is going to be moderating tonight's GOP debate in Iowa. And during a pre-debate interview with Neil Cavuto, he answered some questions about the Republican candidates. So just listen to Wallace's response when he was asked about Ron Paul.
If Ron Paul wins here, what then?
Well, the Ron Paul people are not going to like my saying this, but to a certain degree it will discredit the Iowa caucuses because, rightly or wrongly, I think most of the Republican establishment thinks he's not going to end up as the nominee, so therefore Iowa won't count. And
Wait, what? So if Paul wins, then Iowa's influence just goes out the window? It doesn't count? I mean, this is exactly what's wrong with our media these days. They pick and choose who gets to go to the debates. They pick and choose who gets more coverage. And if they don't like somebody that the people might actually choose, then it just doesn't count. That is ludicrous. Yes, Ron Paul doesn't echo the typical talking points you'll hear from Bachmann, Santorum, Romney, or Gingrich, or the GOP establishment for that matter. He is anti-establishment, which is why people are liking him these days. The representative from Texas is outspoken about the war on drugs. He condemns the military-industrial complex, reining in America's foreign policy, and surely you remember his disgust at Santorum's proposal for racial profiling in a previous debate.
So just to be precise, is it ethnic profiling, religious profiling? Who would be profiled?
Well, the folks who are most likely to be committing these crimes. If you look at it, I mean, obviously it was people. Obviously, Muslims would be someone you'd look at. Absolutely, those are the folks who are the radical Muslims, are the people that are committing these crimes, as we've by and large, as well as younger males. I mean, these are things that not exclusively, but these are things that you profile to find your best, the most likely candidate.
Oh, God forbid somebody from the Republican side openly opposes the idea of racial profiling. All right, so it's pretty clear that he's not your typical GOP candidate, but that is not a bad thing. And let me just remind everybody that according to Iowa polls, people are getting behind Ron Paul and his message. In fact, the Des Moines Register found that his support has jumped from 7% in June to 18% last month, and he's currently ranked second behind Newt Gingrich.
The latest polling from the American Research Group shows Romney and Paul tied at 17% in Iowa and Gingrich at 22%.
And he's also got something the other GOP candidates don't: young, college-aged voters. So whether or not he'll win in Iowa is going to remain to be determined. But Chris Wallace is just so eager to brush him off like the rest of the mainstream media. He'd rather stick to appeasing people his own age, the older generation who don't much fancy change. And of course, he only thinks of Romney and Gingrich as the real contenders. I hate to be the one to point it out, but you know what? People's views do change. Society changes, and reciting old rhetoric isn't necessarily going to do the trick. People are tired of the same thinking and the same tired solutions that have failed us. However, Chris Wallace would rather just prefer to keep his blinders on and try to make sure that his viewers suffer the same fate. So I just cannot wait to see his face when somebody forces him to recognize that Paul's campaign is getting stronger. And now that he's set up new offices in Colorado, Minnesota, and North Dakota, it's pretty clear the Texas congressman doesn't plan to bow out anytime soon. But nah, it's just so much easier for grumpy Chris Wallace to just discredit and say, hey, somebody who the establishment doesn't like simply doesn't count. And so for that, he's tonight's Tool Time winner.